everyone, thanks for joining me. Today I want to talk about how you can keep your baby parrotlet as tame as the day you brought him home or her home from the breeders, or if your baby is not quite tame, how you can tame your baby down. So this is not a definitive list or an exhaustive list by any means, but just a few things that have really helped me in keeping parrotlets to make them into fantastic pets. So the first tip I have is to make sure your babies or baby is in a separate cage, away from the rest of your birds or your parrots, not just because of quarantining purposes, but the purpose is to make that baby as dependent on you as possible. If your baby is with the rest of your flock, quarantining requirements aside, your baby is going to grow a bond with the other birds, even if the baby is not in the same cage as your other birds. Your other birds could be finches or canaries. Your other birds could be other parrot species, could be an African gray, could be another parrotlet. Either way, if a baby can see another parrot, they are going to grow a dependency on that other parrot or those parrots or birds. They will become their flock. It will be harder to keep that baby tame in these key first weeks of life when they're really young. Even when they're a little bit older, a few months old, this is the time when you really want it to become dependent on you as a source of comfort and companionship and play, etc., etc. So separate your birds from each other and separate them from anything that looks like a cage. If they see a cage represents security. They're smart, they can see well. So bars of a cage will look like there could be a flock there and they'll be calling to it all the time. It's okay if your parrotlets can hear other birds, that's fine. Just don't let them see another bird or another cage for a good few months. You can do this for 1 to 2 months, but I'd really recommend at least 3 months. 4 to 5 months is better. So that's the first tip. Separate them in a separate cage. Don't let them see another parrot or another cage. The second tip I have is this. When you get your bird home, you want to make sure that you are not only the source of security for the bird, but you are also the authority figure. And this is going to sound probably kind of bad, but this is the truth. Parrots, these are parrots, so I'm going to refer to them as parrots. Parrots are really, really intelligent beings. They're so smart, and especially parrotlets. Parrotlets are really smart and they're strong-minded little birds. You must provide structure and gentle discipline for them so that they understand what the rules are. They remain well behaved. They learn what's expected of them. Just like babies, they're going to test the waters, they're going to test you out, and you want to make sure you're providing structure for them, of course, based on understanding and kindness of their needs. So, having said that, what I have always found has worked, and some people may not like this idea, and that's fine, but for me, when I bring a new parrotlet home, I put them into a small travel cage like these. You'll also notice that there's no toys in these cages either, and that's on purpose. And I only do this if I have the time to constantly be paying attention to these guys so that they don't get overly bored. The purpose of it is twofold. When they're in a smaller cage, especially if they're newly home, even if they're very tame, they can be scared. If you put your hand in the cage and ask them to step up, even if they already know how to do that, if they're scared, they may move away from you. Or somewhere in their little parrotlet brain could say, hey, you know what? I'm not really in the mood to step up, even though I know what she's asking me. Let me just sashay away over into the other corner. And if they're in a larger cage, you can't catch them. They've just learned that they have a choice. They have just learned they're smart. It only takes once. They've just learned that they can disobey you and there's no consequences. So to help avoid that, if they're in a small cage, it's harder for them to get away. Of course, you want to go slow and gentle with them, obviously, but when you're picking them up, ask them to step up from inside, and then when you put them back in, you to ask them to step down. Always the golden rule. Okay, so the first thing is, for a smaller cage, the reasoning, it helps you have more control. The second reason why a smaller cage is ideal is because they get bored in a small cage. And again, going back to the principle that you want to be the source of fulfillment for them, if that sounds funny, but if they're bored in there, it means they want to come out and be with you. So because there's no toys in there, they will look forward to you coming and asking them to step up, come out, and they will be more eager to be with you, bond with you, and to learn the rules of your household with you. So those are the two reasons why putting them in a small cage for the first little while is a good idea. At least I found it to be a good idea. Some people may feel differently, and that's fine. The third thing to help keep your baby tame is to handle the baby frequently. So as a general rule with any parrot or parrotlet, seeing they're all parrots, you want to set expectations around how much attention and how much they're going to be out of their cage, especially in these formative first months. So barring the first few days when you want to make sure you're helping to build trust with them, overall, if you know that normally once real life kicks in, you're not going to be able to be taking them out 18 times a day because let's say you're not on vacation anymore or life is busy, don't take them out 18 times a day when they're babies, because they're going to get used to it, and that can trigger behavioral problems if you suddenly stop giving them the same amount of attention that you were giving them previously. They're resilient. I mean, 1 or 2 days is not going to hurt them, but overall, it's a good thing to keep in mind. Set your expectations and be consistent with those. And the second thing is, when they are very, very newly home, though, you can handle them a lot. It helps them get used to you. What I tend to do is when I bring them home, I don't put them in their cage right away. And again, the reason why I don't do that is because they associate already a cage and bars with security, away from the human. You don't want their first impression of the new environment to be something separate from you. You want their first impression of the environment to be safe with you. So what I do is I take the babies to one of them at a time. Let's say I'll take them to a very small room. This sounds kind of gross, but a bathroom is a really good place. If it's a small bathroom, like a powder room, there's very little distraction generally in there. There's not a lot of noise. Don't make any sudden movements. Just sit there with the bird, quietly talk with him, get him to step up, get him to step down, etc. But spend a few minutes there first before you put the bird in the cage. That way, again, you're building his dependency on you. He hopefully will realize you're safe. The cage is now an extension of you because you put him in there, and try and get him to step down if you can. What I would do then quickly, right after I get him to step down, is get him to step back up again and take him out and go back to the bathroom and do exactly the same thing. Do that a few times, and then during that same day, you just get him to step down, get him to step back up, and do it every 10 minutes. And gradually, because he's in a small cage, he can't really get away from you. He realizes, hey, this is just the way it is. And then right off the bat, you always will have a parrot that listens to you, steps up, steps down, and doesn't nip at you as they get older. So those are 3 tips that I found really helpful for me. So again, the first one is separate cages, separate them away from the rest of your flock. The second thing is a small cage, travel cage is fine. Limit their freedom while they're babies and learning. And then the third tip is handle them frequently, but not too frequently so that you set an unrealistic expectation for future attention. So hopefully those were helpful. I'm open to any comments or suggestions. Please feel free to leave those below in the comments, and please feel free to like and subscribe. Thanks very much for watching.